For nearly a century, entertainment followed a simple rule. The audience adapted to the schedule. Movies started at specific times. Television shows aired on specific nights. Video rental stores closed at specific hours. If you missed the show, you waited. If the movie wasn't available, you waited. If the rental store was out of stock, you waited. The entertainment industry controlled the clock. Then a Silicon Valley company asked a radical question. What if the clock worked for the audience instead? That question would eventually transform one of humanity's oldest industries. Not by changing what people watched, but by changing how they watched. This is the story of Netflix, the company that broke prime time. For decades, entertainment distribution followed a familiar pattern. Broadcast television, cable networks, movie theaters, video rental stores. Power flowed through distribution. A handful of organizations determined when content appeared, where content appeared, how content appeared. Consumers had limited control. If your favorite television show aired Thursday night at 8 p.m., that was when you watched it, or you missed it. Scheduling wasn't a feature of the system. It was the system, and for many years, it worked. But technology was beginning to create alternatives. Netflix was founded in 1997 by Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph in the Bay Area. Most people associate Netflix with streaming. That came later. The original business was surprisingly physical. DVDs, mail, subscriptions. Customers selected movies online. Netflix mailed DVDs directly to their homes. At first glance, this doesn't sound revolutionary, but it solved several frustrations. No late fees, no driving to the store, no wondering whether the movie was in stock. The experience felt different, more convenient, less friction. And throughout Silicon Valley history, reducing friction has often been the beginning of transformation. If you followed Bay origins, a familiar theme keeps appearing. Google didn't invent information. It improved access to information. eBay didn't invent commerce. It improved access to commerce. Netflix didn't invent entertainment. It improved access to entertainment. This distinction matters. Many of the most transformative companies don't create entirely new activities. They remove barriers from existing activities. And when barriers disappear, behavior changes. Then Netflix made one of the most important strategic decisions in entertainment history. In 2007, the company launched streaming services. Today, this feels inevitable. It wasn't. At the time, streaming faced enormous obstacles. Internet speeds varied dramatically. Infrastructure was still evolving. Consumer habits were deeply established. Physical DVDs remained successful. Many companies would have protected the existing business. Netflix chose something far riskier. It began investing in a future that threatened its own present. A recurring Silicon Valley lesson. Sometimes the greatest threat to your company is your most successful product. Streaming introduced a deceptively simple idea. Watch what you want, when you want. Not next week. Not Tuesday at 8 p.m. Not after a trip to the rental store. Now. This represented a profound shift in power. For generations, distribution systems controlled timing. Now audiences control timing. And once people experience greater convenience, they rarely want less convenience. Consumer expectations changed permanently. The clock had shifted. One of the most fascinating consequences was behavioral. For decades, television assumed scarcity. Episodes arrived once per week. Viewers waited 7 days for the next installment. Streaming changed the equation. Entire seasons became available instantly. Viewers could watch multiple episodes in succession, a behavior that became known as binge watching. At first, this seemed unusual. Soon it became normal. The audience wasn't simply consuming content differently. The audience was reorganizing time itself. Entertainment no longer operated according to a network schedule. It operated according to personal preference. And once again, technology changed behavior. Another transformation followed. Netflix initially distributed content created by others. Then it became a creator itself. Original films, original television, original documentaries. The company evolved from platform to producer. This shift reflected a broader Silicon Valley pattern. Successful platforms often expand vertically. Control the experience. Control the distribution. Control the content. The ecosystem becomes increasingly integrated, and the competitive advantages become stronger. Why Netflix really matters. Many people believe Netflix succeeded because of streaming technology. That's only part of the story. Streaming already existed. Broadband internet already existed. Compression technologies already existed. Data networking already existed. Netflix combined those technologies with a new business model, a new distribution model, a new understanding of consumer behavior. The breakthrough wasn't merely technical. It was strategic. The company recognized that audiences valued convenience more than tradition, and it built accordingly. Netflix also represents a milestone in the broader Bay Origins narrative, the first generation of Silicon Valley-built infrastructure. Semiconductors, computers, networking. The second generation organized information, search, commerce, digital platforms. Netflix showed what happens when that infrastructure becomes mature enough to reshape culture itself. The internet was no longer simply connecting people. It was transforming industries. And entertainment became one of the most visible examples. Throughout Bay Origins, we've watched Silicon Valley repeatedly identify friction, then remove it. Wells Fargo removed friction from commerce. Google removed friction from information discovery. eBay removed friction from trust. Netflix removed friction from entertainment. The result wasn't merely a successful company. It was a fundamental change in audience expectations. Today, people assume content should be available instantly, anywhere, anytime. That expectation barely existed a generation ago. Which brings us back to the question at the heart of Bay Origins. Why did it happen here? Perhaps because Silicon Valley repeatedly asks a deceptively simple question. Why does this process have to be this difficult? And every time the answer changes, entire industries change with it. The innovator's ledger. Lesson 1. Distribution can be more powerful than creation. Hollywood focused on creating content. Netflix focused on delivering content differently. Sometimes the biggest opportunity isn't improving the product. It's improving access to the product. Lesson 2. Be willing to cannibalize yourself. Netflix disrupted its own DVD business to pursue streaming. Many organizations wait until disruption becomes unavoidable. The strongest organizations often disrupt themselves first. Lesson 3. Convenience changes behavior. Consumers rarely describe convenience as revolutionary. Yet convenience repeatedly reshapes industries. The easier something becomes, the more people use it. Netflix transformed entertainment by removing friction between people and the content they wanted. What frustration do customers in your industry simply accept as normal? And what would happen if it disappeared? Netflix did not invent storytelling. It did not invent movies. It did not invent television. And it did not invent streaming. What it reinvented was access. The company changed when people watched, how people watched, and ultimately what they expected from entertainment itself. Hollywood changed what audiences watched. Netflix changed how audiences watched. And once again, the future arrived through the Bay Area. This is Bay Origins, birthplace of the future.